Are you still running into challenges with the communication of the North Carolina Association of Realtors Form 220? If you are not alone. And today we're going to break it down so that you have a better understanding using the North Carolina Association of Realtors guidance on that. So for those who haven't met me, my name is Chris Cox. I am the education director of a real estate school here in North Carolina. And if you are coming back, thank you so much for watching my videos. Hopefully you have subscribed so you make sure that you stay in touch with all the latest videos that I'm putting out there. But we're going to talk about that exactly today. So hang with me and we'll get to, kind of some different variables here with the Form 220. Now that we're 10 months into it, I think we have a pretty good track record. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up this form here just so you have a guidance. So this is available to everybody. If you go to the North Carolina Association of Realtors website, and if you log in with your NERDS ID, you'll be able to have access to Form 220G. And it's a very handy flow chart because, in all honesty, we're seeing a lot of conversations around this, and this is going to change. It's going to continue to change as the market changes, because as the market conditions improve, sellers may not have to offer buyer agent compensation as often as they may still currently be doing. So let's take a look at how this form works so that you can kind of follow along given your situation. So you're going to start right here at the top, and you're going to kind of decide, has the seller authorized the listing firm to pay using Form 220, cooperating compensation in the listing agreement. If the answer is yes, then the listing firm is going to provide the form, a blanket offer of compensation. Then they're going to use Form 220 to offer that. So this is going to be, they're offering the same percentage to every buyer who comes along, regardless of the terms of that offer. So if it's yes, then you're just going to follow this flow chart around, and you'll see a listing firm should be checked. The listing firm should be checked on Form 220. Now I know there's a lot of different ways that firms are requiring you to fill this out, but there are also conversations that need to be had regarding the negotiation of this as well. So if the seller has authorized the firm, or has not authorized, we're going to go to no. So now, is the seller willing to pay cooperative compensation directly to a buyer's agent or sub-agent? If the answer is no, then the Form 220 is non-applicable. If the answer is yes, is the seller making a blanket offer of cooperation, or will it vary based on the terms of the offer? So now we're getting into the place where we're seeing a lot of the confusion happen. I would say at least twice a week I'm having conversations with other brokers just that are, struggling with this. They're getting an answer, and you may have received an answer just like this when you're asking, hey, is the seller willing to pay buyer agent compensation for my buy on this property? So the answer, and this is what I'm giving on my listings, when I have this, when the sellers are open to this form of communication, this is how I'm communicating. So you may have seen something like this. So it could come over that the seller is willing to pay buyer agent compensation based on the terms of the offer. And that seems to be the one that is really throwing people for a loop there, because they don't know what to do with that. What does that mean? How do we communicate that? Do we send this form over first? Do we send the offer over and then the Form 220 separately when we're after the fact? So how are we doing that? But this form gives us all the answers for that. So let's go back in here. So that is basically when you get this question that says unknown. So as a final resort, and this is what I have been in this situation, this is how I have been working both the buying side and the listing side. So as a final resort, if a buyer wants to make an offer, but the buyer agent cannot obtain information about cooperative compensation even after making multiple efforts to obtain such information, then a buyer agent can submit the buyer's offer unsigned to the seller or the listing agent, and then include a separate Form 220. It cannot be part of the same document, so you can't merge the PDFs together. What I have seen is I have seen them come over separately in the same email with a paragraph that you should talk to your managing broker, your broker in charge, about what kind of language do you need to include in that. So you are essentially, especially from the North Carolina Real Estate Commission perspective, an unsigned offer is a verbal offer. So you are sending over nothing more than a verbal offer, but from the North Carolina Association of Realtors perspective, this is the preferred method when you're running up against this scenario. So that seems to be the one that gets really hung up, because then the seller is able to look at your 220 to see what you're asking for compensation. And then they're also looking at the terms of your offer. Because at the end of the day, it really just comes down to what is the net to the seller on that. So doing it that way allows the seller to react to the terms of the offer as well as the terms of the buyer agent compensation that you're asking for, and taking that whole transaction together rather than just looking at, hey, I'm offering X% to every buyer that comes in with an offer, regardless of what that offer is. So that is, the long and the short of it. There's some nuances stuff in there, but if you are hearing that, it is perfectly okay. The listing agent is not trying to be shady with you. They're not trying to withhold information. They are acting on the best interest of the seller based on what the seller is willing to offer, again, at that point in time. Does not mean that they're not going to pay a buyer agent compensation. It just means that, hey, we're open to paying a buyer agent compensation based on the terms of your offer. So hopefully this helps. If this helps you in any way, or you think this would be helpful to anybody else, go ahead and share this video out to them. Give this video a like, subscribe. Let me know that this stuff that we're putting together here is content that you'd like to see and that you're finding beneficial. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.